Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Cultured Nerd Podcast. This week we're doing episode 32. We're actually going to take a step back from the drama of the writer's strike and the SAG-AFTRA strike and everything that's happening in the reality right now. And we're going to talk about something that we skipped last week because of the SAG strike. We're going to talk about the confirmed cast of Superman Legacy. We're going to talk about who is involved, who's the leads, the characters that are now being included. And then we're going to talk about some new rumors that came out the last 48 hours that James Gunn had to debunk. And we're going to talk about those and how ridiculous they are and how people still are buying into whatever they read on the tabloids, apparently. So let's just jump right into it. And we're going to talk Superman Legacy. How you doing?
Taylor, it's Dream Team time. You now know the toys that you get to play with for Superman Legacy.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening, and it's kind of exciting. But it's also, this is not even the full cast. This is just the cast that they were able to get contracted right before the strike went into effect.
I was about to ask you, was this information that came out through Comic-Con or just because the ink dried and basically now we have to wait for the rest of the cast?
The ink dried, now we have to wait for the rest of the cast. So literally all of this casting dropped last week, the day before the strike kicked into effect. They were just like, sign, announcement. Okay, strike is in effect. We'll pick up the slack when we can start again.
Yeah, it's a really big deal for an act for, I don't know the cast yet. I bet you're going to tell me. I bet there's some young up and coming people to have, if you don't have a huge resume, to have confirmed you are going to be a part of all of this is kind of a big deal. It means other people need to maybe cast you or, get you down so that you don't get gobbled up for another project, because these people are going to be doing a ton of projects.
Yeah, 100%. So let's just jump right into the nitty gritty. So before the strike went into effect, and obviously right now the strike has had no traction. Nothing has changed. It's been a week. I'm not expecting it to go. I think probably within the next 6 weeks, I think the studios are going to start to panic a bit, and they're going to start to jump in and say, "Holy crap, we got to start giving their demands."
Question though.
Yeah.
Do you think that this gets resolved before the end of the year, or do you think this gets resolved January 1st, 2024?
I think it does get resolved before the end of the year. Right now, we actually have some pretty crazy stuff. So the SAG-AFTRA Foundation had revealed, Courtney B. Vance, the foundation president, revealed that actually Dwayne Johnson stepped up and made a huge donation to the emergency relief fund to allow the people who are striking not to be hit as hard as the studios were expecting them to. So I'm 100% assuming that there's going to be a lot of actors that are going to be stepping forward and saying, "Hey, I made a butt ton of money this past year on random projects. Here's a couple million for the fund. Let's get this strike going. Let's get these deals better. Let's make it happen." Because there was a crazy story just today, actually, that the voice actress Victoria Atkin, who did the voice work for Evie Fry in 2015's Assassin's Creed Syndicate, some modder went online, modded her voice, used AI to replicate the entire voice, and replaced all of the dialogue in Skyrim with her voice using AI. And that is exactly what the actors and the strikes are about, to stop shit like that from happening, because people can do it now on a whim, and they don't want the studios to do that. They want the studios to basically say, "Hey, we can pretty much replicate an entire human being digitally now, so let's just do it." They don't want that to happen.
The Rock employs probably a small army of people. He probably has a payroll like a small corporation. So the fact that he wants to keep this going, I also feel like this confirms that The Rock will be at WrestleMania this year. I know that's a side note, but like, if he's not doing any movies, he can get in wrestling shape again.
100%. I mean, he's already in wrestling shape. He just needs to put on the unitard and go for it again.
Oh, he's never was a unitard man, but he's got to get a beef going with somebody, but he's got to get that stamina.
He's going to show back up with John Cena, and they're gonna fight. Like that's what it's gonna be.
What do you think is these examples? I understand why this is scary. Like I get that part of it, but I wonder if these people are looking at it. I wonder if they're looking at where the future of this goes, because what we're talking about is really replacing people.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like cutting out the middleman. And I don't think we're there yet. And it's funny because all these other projects, you know, every year they give the Back to the Future guy some Disney project where he puts everyone in, you know, cutting edge Christmas movie, right? He did the Jim Carrey one. And it's like, well, at what point do we have enough image on you that we don't need to use you anymore?
Well, that's what the actors and the writers and everyone in between are trying to prevent. They're trying to basically lock it in so that not only is their contract of them, but also a full contract of their likeness and voice, so that if the studios want to use it, not only do you have to pay the actor fee for using the likeness in previous form or CGI form or whatever they do, but they also have to pay residuals if, say, the person dies, and then the estate all of a sudden is now granted with, okay, so Christopher Reeve passed away, so we want to use Christopher Reeve Superman in the Crisis movie. Okay, now we have to pay residuals to his family for using him. So that's what they want to have contracted, is it actually be cut and dry. You cannot use a single person's face without a contract.
I feel like we are so close. I think that this is a very interesting precipice, because who is the actor that plays the new Captain America Falcon?
Oh, Anthony Mackie.
Okay. He talked about how there's no movie stars anymore. There's just these super
Characters,
right?
yeah.
I could see Disney coming up with an amalgamation face and being like, that's Captain America. Because all of these people are portrayed by super talented stunt people who we interview, and they don't want to put the spotlight on it, even if they're doing more than 60% of a movie at sometimes. So you could just make the next person and then just have that person for perpetuity, because they want these characters for a decade at least. You know what I mean? Like when everything's said and done, like how long has Tom Holland been around now?
Oh, I don't know. That's an insane question, to be honest.
2016. When did he start with Spider-Man?
2016? Civil War, right?
We're coming up to a decade. You know what I mean? Like that's what these commitments are to these characters.
One thing that it struck my mind almost immediately as you said it, and this reminds me of this older thing that I remember a lot of things happen, like on Reddit, for instance, when they always say, let's mix all of the faces of the actors who played these characters. That's going to be a thing that's going to probably happen in the next 20 years, where you basically say, okay, here's Batman, because here's Adam West, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, all in one face. Here is Superman, Christopher Reeve, Dean Cain, Tom Welling, Brandon Routh, Henry Cavill. They basically take all of the features of all the actors who came before. There you go.
They would do it, Taylor.
They would do it in a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat. Taylor, let me pitch to you a movie that's never going to happen, okay?
Right.
It's a female Batman, and the character is Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton's daughter. Their two faces melded together. We get back it's super weird to have a female Batman, but it's an alternative universe where, right, Michael Keaton never told her. She was raised by someone else. Great. Right. Here's what the face would look like. We don't even have to find somebody to look like it. Here's scientifically what happens when we meld these two faces together.
And I've always thought about that. Like that would be the thing coming forward. I mean, so you hire Ben Affleck to play Batman, right? And then you have a prequel where Ben Affleck's Batman is supposed to be 20 years younger. You just de-age him like you did Indiana Jones, or you create a 10-year-old version of him for the flashbacks. Like you get to a point where they can just say, hey, we're going to just cast you and we're going to CGI every age of you so that we can have different scenes of your life. And it's going to look like actually you, instead of these weird scenes where you have one scene, here's 12-year-old Superman, and the next scene, here's 14-year-old Superman. Clearly, they're two different actors. Like you have it. Like I can think that'd be something kind of cool to do, but I also think that there has to be a line where the actors are okay with it and compensated properly for it.
That's the point. Like nobody wants to stop telling stories. We want to see our characters in multiple time spans, and I hear that. I get it. If it's like 4 projects, like obviously. Brad Pitt has been scanned a lot. That Benjamin Button movie, when he's at his oldest, when he's a 20-year-old, he looks amazing. And that was a couple years ago, but that was with the actor's consent. This was for this movie. It wasn't going to last into perpetuity to use 20-year-old Brad Pitt to go make Ocean's 79. So there is a place for all of this. I wonder what Taylor, what do you think the rules are going to be? Like, do you just hire the 12-year-old and then use his body model? Or do you need to hire another 14-year-old? Because you're going to slap a new face on them anyway.
Well, they're probably going to do that. They're going to basically say, we're going to cast you to be the stand-in, like they did with Star Wars, right? So here is the actor who is currently portraying Luke. And here he is. Here's the stuntman doing all the scenes. We have Mark Hamill come in doing the voice work. Then we're going to use Reese Speecher to tweak his voice to make it sound younger. And then we're going to use AI to make the young actor have Mark Hamill's face. And you pay everyone the proper amount, right? And that's what it's going to have to come down to, is you have to actually contract them what they're worth and what it's going to be. But I can 100% see that be the future of how this thing goes down.
Taylor, can we put our old man hats on for a second? Because Taylor and I were around when CG in movies looked awful. The 90s was, there's some great projects, there's some awful projects, and you would just be exposed to these things. Like, this is a hit movie, and you're like, wow, that looked awful.
Yeah. Scorpion King. Star Wars Episode 2, it was very jarring the first time you see 99% of the CGI. They fix it in the years to come, but if you're one of the people like me, you have the original DVD of that movie, you can watch it before it was cleaned up. And it's funny looking.
Right. Okay. Now look at where we are. I think this is the exact same thing. We all laugh and scoff about how weird Luke's face looked. It looked weird. And then people on the internet, with as much time and passion as they wanted to, did a much better job of cleaning that up.
And what did they do? They hired those people, and then he used it for the next season when they did it properly. And he looked amazing.
Right. But they hired those folks. And the second part of this is, I think all of this is going to get better.
To put it in perspective, I want people to see this real fast. This was the end of Book of Luke on the left, on my left. I guess your guys is right. So one Luke is from Mandalorian, and the other Luke is from Book of Boba Fett, and there's literally a year difference in the technology. And
Taylor, the one on the right looks so good. The one on the left looks like a video game character.
Yeah. So that's what I see is happening, is that they use this technology properly, and then they create some amazing stuff. Like, I personally would love for them to start adapting some of like the Shadows of the Empire, Heir of the Empire, stuff like that. Those mediary stories, like the middle ground stuff. Cast Billy Lord to play her mom.
Sure.
Get Harrison Ford or whoever he picks to play him, right? Get Mark Hamill, whoever he picks to play him. Do the ADR work with the actors. Give us those characters set in the prime, and I would shut up and take all my money. But instead, we get things like half the stuff they've been giving us on Disney Plus, which makes zero sense.
And you know what the sad part is that I feel like we as individuals who critique these things and speak about it have talked about the quality of these things dropping over time, and that unfortunately, the content coming out of Disney Plus is not up to par, and each one kind of is a little bit less, and sometimes it's a little bit better. But like, I'm watching Secret Invasion. Me and Taylor don't talk about it. You know what I mean? It's happening.
The way I see it is, Secret Invasion has been a story with monumentally big consequences, but has been told in the smallest possible way to where it doesn't feel like it's a big story at all.
They're in 3 sets. They're in that compound weird restaurant. They're in that house, or they're in a car.
It seems like it's a little big movie kind of a thing. But we will see what happens in the finale this week, because if the finale doesn't stick, the show's been a waste of my time. If the finale does well, I'll be like, okay, that was worth it.
But isn't this supposed to be a setup for the Marvels movie? Like, it's not. Okay, when does that take place then?
That's the question, because when Marvel does this to themselves, and this is my little rant about Marvel. When Marvel announces their slate straight off the bat and says, hey, these are our next 10 movies, you know certain characters will have plot padding, and they will be alive no matter what. So clearly, Sam Jackson survives this endeavor. But at the same time, Maria Hill is also listed in the cast for the Marvels, but the Marvels is supposed to be taking place after Secret Invasion. So I'm assuming that Gaia just becomes the new Maria Hill. That's my spoiler prediction, was that everyone's like, oh, she's going to be Abigail Brand of Sword. No, I think she's just going to pretend to be Maria Hill to keep like, oh, Nick Fury is wanted for murder, but guess what? Maria Hill's still alive. I could see something like that be like this bait and switch, because they basically revealed their hand too early, and they're like, shit, we got to fix this. But that's my
also. Doesn't this now lead to nowhere? Because the writer's strike is going to push all of this stuff. What's funny is I didn't think Superman Legacy was going to compete with Avengers. It might now.
Yeah.
What are the time frames? Because that movie has not. I mean, they're going to start having similar paths. Not to mention the fact that all this stuff like Game of Thrones season 2 is like halfway done.
It's still doing. It's okay. Because Game of Thrones is being filmed with the European Union. Because the European Union hasn't striked, they're still filming. They can actually finish.
I guarantee you they're going double time over there. I bet they're going double time to get this thing wrapped and finished.
Yeah. I actually know somebody who's filming on the show right now. He's playing an extra, and he basically was like, yeah, they just they moved all of our dates up. And they're like, we're just doing this hardcore. So yeah, 100%. I think they're fully expecting for the European Union to follow suit very soon. So they're trying to finish as much as they possibly can before they do, because Deadpool was literally like a week and a half before finishing, and now they're stopped, which is terrible. But to get back into it, so
just a side note, I feel like Ryan Reynolds was able to get on the internet. He's confirming Biker Maestro Mars. He's bringing back Alf. What is he? I feel like he got some time on his hands, and he's like thinking about things.
He's probably going to buy another Wrexham situation. He's going to be like, what new sports team can I buy? Because I now have time.
Sure.
Honestly, if you've watched that show, it's fantastic. I love everything that they've done with Wrexham. I think it's fantastic. So back to Superman Legacy. We did diverge a little bit off of what we said at the beginning. We were going to not talk about the strike. Then we ranted for 10 minutes about the strike. Superman Legacy, right before they announced David Cornsweet as Superman, which was one of the names that I was not expecting, because he was very obvious in my opinion, but they went with him.
Who announced this? Where did it get announced? Was this official channels, or is this official? Just people? Okay.
These are all official casting. Because this was not only announced officially by the main trades like Deadline and Variety, but it was also announced and confirmed by James Gunn himself. He went to social media and confirmed everything that's about to be talked about. For everyone who needs to know, David Cornsweet is 30 years old, which he said that will be the age of Superman. He'll be 30. He's also 6'4", and he's Jewish, which is kind of a cool thing, because the original creators of Superman, Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel, were Jewish themselves, and they based this off of the Moses story. So it's kind of like this nice little.
Speaking of which, I feel like we're starting to see James Gunn content. Are you watching the history of DC on Max?
Yeah, it was interesting because they filmed most of that show before James Gunn got the job, but now you can definitely see that they were kind of. I thought it was kind of cool. I was watching it. I'm liking it so far.
The way that he talks about these characters, the way that he talks about making connections for the audience, I was like, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I was like, I can see if this is not the interview for the job, because you can see the other people that they could have given it to. You know, I'm watching what's her name do from the Wonder Woman movie being like, yeah, she kind of understands the gods element of these characters. I can see why, see why they creatively went that way.
Yeah. So they also got Rachel. I'm going to always mess up her last name. It's not Brosnan. It's Brosnahan. Okay. She's the one from the Marvelous Miss Maisel, I think. Is that the name of that show? I always mess that one up.
Is she the one who plays Miss Maisel?
Yes.
She's a great actress.
She's a very great actress.
And they gobbled her up. She was great on House of Cards.
Ironically, David Cornsweet is 6'4", and she's 5'3". He is literally 13 inches taller than her. It's going to be the biggest size gap in between any actor and actress.
I think you want Superman to be tall, because that's part of the silliness of Clark Kent, right? Like he's like, well, don't throw the ball to me, but he's Superman.
Speaking of, if you haven't yet, there's 3 or 4 episodes. My Adventures with Superman on HBO Max. It's a lot of fun. Just sit down.
I added it. It looked too Saturday morning.
No, it's not. It's basically it's an anime. It's made by a Japanese art company, so it's straight up an anime.
I'll watch it. I watched the Batman's Gotham horror, the H.G. Lovecraft one. That was fun.
Yeah, I have to sit down and watch that one still.
Taylor, Batman just feels like the original animated. It's like, oh, it's old timey. He still has all the weapons he has in the animated series. It's 1-to-1.
All right, and now for the casting that was announced right before the strike. Are you ready for this?
Now these are characters. Wow!
Nathan Fillion has been officially cast as Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern. They've already confirmed that Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan will be the main characters of the upcoming Lanterns TV show, which will be following kind of like a True Detective style detective story. But they also confirmed, James Gunn confirmed, that Guy Gardner will be a character that will be appearing throughout multiple projects along with the other Lanterns, and Nathan Fillion will play that Lantern in every project that character is involved in.
You mean that guy from Guardians of the Galaxy 3? Yeah, it sure seems
like... And 2 and 1. He was in all of them.
Yep. And now he's also locked down this character's voice for cartoons and stuff like that.
Yeah, he was Hal Jordan for a long time, but the actor himself is actually, I think, in his 50s, so he's a little too old to play... he's 52. He's a little too old to play Hal Jordan, but having him be a tertiary Lantern where he gets to be sassy and snarky and everything that we love about Nathan Fillion, that sounds a lot of fun to me.
A lot of fun.
All right, next actress, Isabelle Merced, has been announced as Hawkgirl, and she's also appearing in this movie. She is 22 years old, so she'll definitely age into the role. You probably remember her from the live-action Dora the Explorer, the awkward Transformers The Last Night, where she was the one character in that movie. That was the only girl character in that movie, apparently. She was also in Sicario and a few other things. She's known for a lot of her stuff when she was younger, and now she's definitely taking on more grown-up roles. Now she's locked into the DC universe as Hawkgirl.
Which also means Hawk people are confirmed. Like,
yes,
we get
the Thanagarians are going to be a thing.
We're going to have the whole, we can do as much or little as we want with those individuals.
Yep. Next one is, I always mess up his name, Edie Gathegi. He played Darwin in X-Men First Class, the guy who adapted to anything but then got killed, which sucks. He was also that weird vampire in Twilight, the first couple Twilight movies where he had the big dreadlocks.
No, there's a movie I watched him in all the time. I'm trying to think. I need to look at his IMDb. There was something he's great.
He's actually a really great actor. I remember him. He was in The Blacklist. He did that. He's done a handful of other movies, a lot of unknowns, a lot of low budget stuff, little indie films. He is a fantastic actor, so I'm really happy about this. And I think, Michael, you're going to be excited about this next one because it's a weird one. Anthony Kerrigan is playing Metamorpho.
Wow.
Now, that was probably one of the most amazing castings. I mean, obviously, they're like, wow, he looks just like him. But other than that, this actor, Anthony Kerrigan, he does have alopecia, so he's hairless because of an actual genetic issue. But he is a fantastic actor. He played Victor Zsasz in the Gotham TV show. He was known for his role in the show Barry. He has also been from Bill and Ted Face the Music and The Blacklist as well. He's a fantastic actor. He's definitely funny and quirky, but also creepy and serious when he needs to. He's got a wide range. And Metamorpho is one of those characters that has been a villain and teetered the line to a good guy, and he's a member of the Outsiders. He's a member of the Terrifics. He's a member of the JSA. He's all over the place. He's a fantastic character.
What is his weapon set?
Metamorpho?
Yeah.
He is the weapon. He is essentially, like, he can turn his body into different things, kind of like, he's essentially the Fantastic Four as if they were one person.
Like, do you think he's the connector between different movies and different teams?
So one thing that kind of came up right off the bat when they saw this casting, you have Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, Metamorpho, Guy Gardner. Some people screamed, oh, the JSA. But it also could be the Terrifics or the Outsiders or any other one of those random teams that have existed. Probably the JSA, to be honest. But you're going to see a lot of characters that are going to be having a lot of connective tissue. And James Gunn even said that this is a Superman and Lois story. These characters' involvement are not to set up another project, but to also show how big the world is.
This is what we want. This is kind of what Zack Snyder wanted to do in Man of Steel, but just basically had to put all of these things in the background so you knew what they were building to. Yeah. James Gunn is just saying, this is the world. These are the characters that inhabit it. If this is the character, you will see them. And if they are in a place, it'll be this individual.
Yeah. So it's very interesting that they're showing off this many characters, and I'm willing to bet there's going to be a handful of more characters that are going to pop up in this in cameo form and everything in between.
Taylor, are these characters now? I know the answer is no because it probably already shot, but could these characters be in Peacemaker?
No. So one thing that also came up that I thought was very interesting. So James Gunn said something and then deleted it before people got screenshots. He confirmed something that I think a lot of people were already theorizing, but also like now they're like, wait, what's actually happening? So what we know is that at the end of the Flash movie, a new timeline was sort of established. The DCEU is slightly tweaked, and Aquaman is going to follow in that canon. So Aquaman 2 is going to be part of the new Flash timeline that was teased in the ending credit scene of that movie. We also know that the Suicide Squad, we also know that Peacemaker, and all of those projects were tied to that canon as well. One thing that's very interesting is that Nathan Fillion played TK, the detachable kid, in the Suicide Squad, where he got gunned down, and now he's playing Guy Gardner, which 100% means either James Gunn forgot or he's establishing that this is a completely different canon to the one that was already there. Waller, Peacemaker Season 2, Creature Commandos, those projects were all greenlit by the last administration. They were contracted, pre-production was paid for, everything was basically lined up. It would probably be too expensive to kill all of those projects than it would be just to do them, which is why I've always been saying that the DCU is a clean slate timeline, and the DCEU is still finishing its remaining projects that were already started. To me, Waller, Peacemaker, Creature Commandos, those are all part of the old canon that's still kind of trickling through until it's over with. But what James Gunn said on Threads, so on the Twitter alternate, he said when someone asked him what's going on with TDK and how is he now Guy Gardner, he confirmed that actors that were in the prior DC movies can have new roles in the DCU, but they will only be physical roles of one character. So you won't physically see one person play multiple characters. He said that voice work is a little bit different. So he did kind of confirm that his brother may be voicing some handful of random characters in the background. But he did say one thing right off the bat. DC Studios movies and the canon start with Superman Legacy, which again kind of reiterates that point that all of those other projects are part of the DCEU, aka the pseudo Snyderverse that existed after Snyder was gone.
Okay, so we have a couple more of those projects that will linger of the past, and then everything moving forward is going to be Superman.
Essentially, I mean, what we understand is that a lot of these projects will kind of work at the same time because he's having to shoot Peacemaker Season 2 after he finishes Superman Legacy. That is, if the project survives the strikes. It may not survive. A lot of these projects that if the stuff is not ready to go, it may die. So a lot of these DCEU projects that haven't begun yet probably are possibly on the chopping block just due to time and budget and everything in between.
Taylor, from the projects that were announced in a perfect world where he announced that full slate of stuff, what do you think could maybe get the axe?
I don't see any of them getting the axe solely because none of them were started. Superman Legacy was the first one for a reason. And then the next one was supposed to start The Brave and the Bold, and they can't even sign the director until the strikes are over because they're not going to sign anybody until the scripts are done, and the scripts aren't done because the strikes are in effect. So all these projects are on hold anyways. So they're probably all going to still exist, but they may slightly tweak a little bit. The timeline may shuffle around, things like that. But James Gunn had already accounted for Superman Legacy to begin filming next year, so it's very possible that everything on the DCU slate will still exist. Everything else, though, is a whole different ballgame.
With the characters that they announced, do you think that that's going to be Nathan Fillion will be the version he'll be the Green Lantern on the JSA, or that these are just inhabitants of the world and we'll see people interchangeable from those spots?
We know that Hal Jordan and John Stewart and Guy Gardner are officially canon to the DCU. We know that Hal Jordan and John Stewart will have their own TV show, their own miniseries And whether or not Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart are the Justice League members, that's up to debate, but they're going to be casting whoever they are for what they're doing. But we know that he's fleshing out this world very specifically. We're probably going to see characters like Firestorm, Captain Atom. We're probably going to be seeing like Batman, Nightwing, Robin, all those characters. Entire Justice League of characters are probably going to be cast before the ball's rolling, so that they can
also
interchange
Teen
these people.
Titan, right? Aren't we going to start seeing Teen Titan, folks?
We have to, because if you're going to be introducing the Bat family, you're going to also be seeing that they're probably going to introduce the Titans as being the younger team, with the Legacy Titans being something that were already existing.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, then how do you get? Where do you think Raven comes in? Where do you think Beast Boy? Do you think they all come individually, or do you feel like we see Beast Boy would be a great Robin to Swamp Thing? If Swamp Thing is like, whoosh, what are you doing here in my swamp? And he's like, hey man, I'm part of the animals. It's weird for me. It's hard, but like, I totally support what you're doing. Yeah. Like, that's a great way to start getting these characters in the world.
One thing that I fully think that James Gunn is going to do with these movies is going to be very similar to what happened in the beginning act of the Flash movie, where you have awesome crossover sequence, and that's the only time you see these characters. And they're going to just show this connective tissue, like, oh, you're going to have this big thing in the beginning where, like, oh, random mugging is occurring, or a bank robbery, or things like that. And you have just a bunch of cameos, and then it moves on to the story at hand. And that scene is going to impact the rest of the story, but those characters are not going to appear for the rest of the movie because they're off doing other superhero shit.
Right.
So with that, I wanted to also talk about the new rumors that James Gunn having to debunk kind of in real time. Even though that the strike is in effect and everything is happening, he's still going to social media and still debunking a bunch of nonsense that keeps coming out. So much so that
I was about to say, nothing's happening. So what is he debunking? What is there to debunk?
So over the weekend, around Comic-Con, the last few days, there has been kind of an ongoing speculative rumor, and some websites, kind of like Cosmic Book News, we got this covered. You know, the sites that I tell people to avoid like the plague, started running the story saying that David Zaslav is prepping to sell DC Studios to a different studio, like just completely cut off DC Studios from Warner Brothers and just sell DC separately. And with that, he told James Gunn specifically to pack these movies full of characters to make that look very enticing, to make the deal look bigger, and so on and so forth. A lot of people sort of jumping to the story saying, oh my God, David Zaslav is a businessman. He's a monster. He's going to do all this. Of course he's going to do this, and blah, blah, blah. And James Gunn quickly debunked that right off the bat, saying not only is no, he was not told to pack these movies, and two, that's not happening. So the fact that he's having to comment on this almost illogical nonsense is kind of frustrating because it makes zero sense. I mean, we're in the middle of a strike. Why would he sell something that they just bought and they just sunk so much money and capital into merging their brands together, and then spending all this money to separate DC into its own studio, to hire these people, to allow them to do what they're doing, just to turn around and sell them within 6 weeks? Like, that seems like
it's studio sniping. I feel like it's to make Warner Brothers look bad. I mean, there's a lot of articles talking about, how poorly the movies are doing, how much money they've lost. Now, I think that they're very visible. I think everyone's losing money. And we've already touched on how much money Disney has lost. I think Disney's going to start laying off a lot more people. And they're talking about getting out of TV, which I don't know how many jobs are associated with that, but I'm sure it's a sizable amount of production.
It's insane. And I think that I don't see, I'm legitimately worried that they're going to shoot themselves in the foot very quickly.
Well, here's the other thing, Taylor. Do you think that, when does this affect the consumer? Like, when does your Disney subscription double in price? Because I don't understand where this money is supposed to be made, because they're going to have to agree to what the actors want, rightfully so, but they're not going to want to give out losing whatever X amount of extra millions they've been able to squeeze out of these people.
And that's the funny thing, is that this rumor was saying that, oh, this is what's going to happen. But DC Studios, DC, the brand itself, is such a huge cornerstone for WB. It's like selling the project now for a quick buck. It's a drop in the well. Like,
Right.
it's not going to do a damn thing. And they know that come 2025, when all these projects start coming in, they will be making Marvel money like no other. They know that. Why would we sell it now if in a couple years we're going to be like blowing up? One thing that I thought was very interesting was that we're already looking at movies that were supposed to come out at the end of this year being delayed into next year.
Taylor, when's Aquaman coming out? Didn't it just get moved again?
Aquaman is still slated for December, but we know that Zendaya's new movie, The Challengers, was delayed until 2024. They canceled the Cannes screening. We have rumors that Dune is looking to be pushed to next year as well.
Which means that these movies are going to be done, right? But they're just they need to hold on to have something new to put out.
They're trying to pad their Q1 so that they actually have content to release, because they know that they can cut out a few big movies for this year and still release some stuff that was already done, but they will not survive if nothing is filming and nothing is presented. So it's going to be like they're honestly looking at pushing things.
Do you think that they start blowing the dust off old projects?
Well, 100%. So Nickelodeon announced at Comic-Con that they not only gained the rights to the entire 1987 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles TV show, but they're going to start playing it on air very soon. So you can already see some of these studios are like, we need to start filling in some content. Let's bring out the old stuff and start syndicating that stuff again. So you already know that it's started.
Okay. I think Turtles will be a fun nostalgia thing, but I wonder if there's any old shows that blow up, like we're a little bit ahead of their time, they get brought back, and like all of a sudden they find a real audience for them.
Oh,
because it's going to be one of these shows, they keep, what is it? We've been talking about bringing SWAT cats back forever. Maybe it's finally time for SWAT cats to get a real audience.
I would love them to bring back Pirates of Darkwater and then finish the damn show, because that show ended on like a really awesome cliffhanger, and then that was it.
Oh, what a show. What a show.
What a show. That was cool stuff. But we talked about this last week that the studio, CBS, is going to be airing a highly edited version of Yellowstone on cable, on just standard TV now. So you know that a lot of these companies know that they have zero content coming out. It's going to either be reality TV, game shows, or whatever other unscripted project they can. But they're also going to try to fill those gaps in with some of the streaming exclusives and putting them on TV, which it's going to be kind of a wild thing to see. I could see Netflix start licensing some of their shows to TV channels, and we'll start seeing like House of Cards on TV or something,
I mean, isn't that why all these Netflix shows literally write to ad breaks? Like, I've never understood why they hit that structure. Wasn't the goal eventually to go to a thing with commercials eventually? I mean, why 100%. Would you since the beginning of time, I watch these shows and I'm like, the Joe Rogan podcast is in long form. It's not cut up, right? You listen to the whole thing. Yeah. These shows are very clearly with ad breaks or jump scares or, move to the next thing. Oh, Taylor, something I forgot. I saw, we're talking about Netflix again. You know that in a heartbeat, Netflix is going to become the evil empire. They would use a CG version of Henry Cavill to keep The Witcher going. In a heartbeat, right? If they could have a CG AI version of him for season 4 and 5, they would absolutely do it, right? So it's why all this stuff has to get. And that was the first thing. I apologize for getting that. We were talking about it earlier. I was like, because that's a guy. Look at Henry Cavill and all the power he brings to projects, but he has to be attached to it. And all of a sudden, you can start slapping his face on stuff. It devalues his brand, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's going to be kind of a crazy time to see what's coming next. I'm I'm legitimately kind of like, I'm cautiously optimistic about this whole thing because
it's going to slow. Listen, if superhero fatigue is a thing, there ain't going to be no superhero movies for a hot minute.
Right. And that's why I think that sometimes, I mean, they kind of said it in Batman Begins, right? When a forest goes out of control, sometimes a purging fire is the only way to put it back in check. This strike, these two strikes are the purging fire that's going to fix Hollywood. And it's going to be the great reset that's going to cause a lot of this fatigue to stop. It's going to cause a lot of the overdoing it by the studios, instead of, because they've been doing this, like they've been running a mile a minute for a long time, trying to pump out as much content as they humanly can. And now we even have people like Bob Iger saying, we've done too much with Disney, we've done too much with Marvel, we've done too much with Star Wars. We need to dial it back and focus more on the quality than the quantity. And obviously he's still saying a lot of crap that's like, why would you say that? You're kind of a monster. But some of those notions, that's what's going to start kicking in very soon. And you're going to start seeing that the consumers are going to appreciate the content that is coming out, because it's going to be better content, because the contracts that the actors and the writers are asking for are going to ensure that they get what they deserve, and they're not going to be pushed to do 60, 70 projects a year just to make their ends meet. It's going to slow down.
Is there any movies that are out right now that you think get a re-release?
100%.
You think Barbie gets re-released next summer as well?
I don't know. Possibly. I mean, I don't know. I have no desire to watch Barbie. I'm not a woman nor a feminist, so I don't know how that would work for me. But I could see it happening. I mean, it's made a butt ton of money, and even with the movies coming out in theaters, I mean, local theaters have all the time to see re-releases of, like, oh, the 15th anniversary of Harry Potter. Here's this movie coming out for a week. I could see them do that. Like, basically look at like the next year's landscape and say, what movie's anniversary is coming up, and let's just stack the entire year with anniversary re-releases.
That's a project I'm worried about. They want to redo all of Harry Potter again, and I feel like that might get shaky ground, and this incarnation of it gets canceled, because they cannot work on that. And then when they come back, there's so much that they have to get moving forward on all of that to make that happen.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be started production until next year anyways, so I think they've got time.
I don't think it starts next year. I mean, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. That seems like such a big undertaking.
Yeah. I personally think that the idea of a Harry Potter series where one season is a book is a much better approach to adapting the books than the 2-hour movies that we got. Because there was a lot of stuff left out, and I think they can definitely pull off better storytelling if they do it right.
I was going to say, it's got to have a budget. I feel like the stuff the stuff that they took out of the books, like all the goblin stuff, all the kitchen antics and finding out how the school works. And I just feel like there's a lot of production, Taylor, a lot of money on creatures and CG that needs to get put in to make all that stuff real.
I think what they should do, and I know this is a tangent that people probably don't care about, what they should do is what they did the first time, and what they also did with the Lord of the Rings movies and everything like that, is
shoot them all at once.
CGI as cleanup, shoot it all at once, keep the actors kind of aged the same way. Use practical effects every chance you can. It's cheaper, it looks better, and use CGI to clean some of the gaps, but do as much practical as you can. I mean, Peter Jackson said it best. You can either CGI the Shire for this much money, or you could just build the damn thing for half the cost. And they just built the damn thing, and it's still up in New Zealand right now.
Right.
So I think that if they're smart, yes, it might take more time, but you'll get a better product out of it, and it will be cheaper if you do it correctly.
Well, I'll tell you, people's tastes are going to change, and I wonder where this gets funneled into. You know, I can think of already the Avenue streams that already have many fans and stuff like that. Video games will be played and comic books will be read, but I wonder what industries will benefit from this.
Yeah. I could easily see a lot of indie things coming up. I see a lot more podcasts probably come out of the woodwork. You see a lot of rewatch podcasts coming through. 100% could see, like, oh, let's do a rewatch of Full House and have like the Full House cast all there. I could see that be a thing. Because a lot of those rewatch podcasts are getting a lot of attention, and
and it's
get the
double
nostalgia
content,
going.
right? Like, and then that audience goes and watches the episodes again, which
Yeah.
ticks the streaming numbers.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's going to be interesting to see, but I would very much like to see the writers and the actors to get what they're asking for, because it's not unheard of where you have a CEO making more money in a single day than the writers get in a year. If any of them just, I understand that if you say, okay, we cut down half their budget, half their yearly income, and then you redistribute it and every writer gets an extra $100 a week. Like that doesn't seem like a lot, but that's what they're asking for essentially, is like to make it so that the man on the mountain isn't like a multi-billionaire. He can still be a billionaire, but
LA is expensive, and you would think that
expensive.
even with these projects, and you would think that full-time working people would make a living wage. Unfortunately, they are not.
They're
And
not.
living expenses and other things make it very difficult for them to execute their craft.
Mm-hmm.
Or individuals that are good at their craft can't even pay their bills. There's that
Right.
story about the writer of The Bear having to look for a job. You know what I mean? Like, so it's
he made FX and Hulu and Disney millions, and this guy was having a hard time paying his mortgage.
Right. And you would assume that one of those mega conglomerates would go, hey, I think of Disney in the 40s and the 50s. Put this guy on salary. We don't know what we're going to use him for, but he's talented enough that we know we'll send a project his way. And it's not like that. And they're letting people, die on the vine.
And I think it's going to slowly go back to how it used to be, because how it used to be was better for everyone. So it's going to be interesting to see. But on that note, I think you've all heard enough of us rambling today, because we definitely have a lot of excitement towards Superman Legacy, a lot of unknown thanks to the strike. But you know what's not unknown? Our podcast. We're still going to keep going every week, regardless of the new and exciting new shiny news and everything that's not going to be happening. We're still going to be talking. Possibly next week we may just do let's talk about the animes that we love right now, because I know that you've been watching Nier and One Piece, because I saw it on my watch list that you all of a sudden you're watching my shows again.
I love that you can see what I'm watching. I watched that Dragon Ball superhero movie. It was fine. That animation looks good. If they can do that in the TV show, bring back the show.
There's been some rumors that they're looking at bringing back and redoing Dragon Ball and then finishing Super, which would be kind of cool. But
Taylor, take the screen away. We got to end the show. Take the screen away. All of the redrawn Dragon Ball stuff in that movie was amazing.
And that's actually what spurred it, because the actual animator and all those guys were basically like, we love doing these scenes so much, let's just redo the show. So
Goku as a kid, there's so many cool stuff. It makes Dragon Ball Z became very sci-fi, but it's got so much fun fantasy. And I feel like Super has a lot of that fantasy. I would love for them to redraw all that stuff, or do an official OVA that links it all together.
Yeah, more so than the Path to Power movie that we got. Like an actual, let's get a lot more of it. Right. I liked watching the Path to Power, but it was also very rushed.
Speaking of a lot more of it, look at a lot more of these Patreon subscribers giving us their heart and shekels. Thank you so much. He's been your host, Taylor Murphy. I'm your co-host, Michael Santel. Whip out those cell phones. Give that a picture. Give a like, comment, subscribe. Hit us up on the internet. Let us know what projects you're excited for, because nothing's happening anytime soon. And we'll see all you kids and cats next time.
Let's see you later. Bye-bye.